Welcome back to the randInt podcast with Raffy and Chandra. Wow. Our fans are up early. Well, I mean, it's early here. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what time it is over there.
It's the afternoon. It must be definitely up here in the Bahamas.
So today, so this is episode 2 of season 5. Again, amazed that this is going for 5 years.
But wait, there's more.
I will try and print it. It's been 33 seconds. So I came up with a list of AI-generated topics, and this one, I was like, yes, we have to do this because this is genuinely randInt-ish, which is...
Did you come up with this list while you were in your Tesla?
No, not in the Tesla. This is not Grok. This is like, the very closed open AI. But anyway, is tech fails that changed the world. And I thought this would be a good list and nerdy enough for this show. But before that, a very quick, how are you, Chandra? So, how are you?
I'm alright. It's a bit rainy here, actually, and the weather's been a bit ordinary.
Oh no, why don't you just move to somewhere less rainy?
I came for the sunny, beautiful, clear weather, which is just right. I'm like, man, it's been a bit, it's quite a bit of rain today. But thankfully, apparently the weather picks up from tomorrow on, so I've been basically just anchored up in one spot for the last 5 weeks or so now. And I think it's finally time to start moving. I think there's a small ecosystem that's grown around my anchor now.
Oh, okay.
They'll be a bit sad when I pick up the anchor and leave.
Wow. More water. That's so bad.
It's true. I'll have to go from one area of water to another area of water. But it'll be good.
Nice.
But it was also nice, actually, just today there was a little... it's a very friendly network of people around here as well. So, for example, paddle disappeared, and there's like a morning radio thing where people just chat and whatnot, and you can sort of put it up announcement of, I'm looking for this because it drifted off, anybody seen it? Anyway, somebody just cruised by the boat, and they were like, I've got a spare one, because my paddle board blew up. Do you want the paddle? I was like,
nice.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, it's nice. I was able to give them some coffee. Freshly roasted coffee beans as a thank you. But everyone's just quite helpful and friendly. But apart from that, the other thing I've been doing is just finally had a little bit of time to get back into deep work.
Yep.
It's been nice. Did a bit of coding and proper sort of deep work coding with interruptions. And I was like, it's been a little while, but that is quite enjoyable.
That's awesome. I was like on your note of people generally being helpful and going, you have the spare, right? So someone was saying, it's like, especially with the modern day, it's like capitalism, burn it down. And then I was like, I don't think you realize it's like, if you burn it down, it would just spring up because this happens where someone goes, do you want this? And the moment someone goes, hey, do you want this? Someone reciprocates with the fresh coffee bean. That is intrinsic, right? And then you spin enough times, you end up with capitalism again. Or some version of it. They're like, barter and trade ain't going away. Like, this is base level stuff.
It's a very barter level thing. There are people who are like, just take it. It's fine. It's all yours, but, I want to give something back.
Well, that's it, right? Modern day capitalists have probably gone too far in terms of value extraction rather than, just going the reciprocal exchange. Some version of this springs up, right? Like, I don't know what guardrails you put in. But anyway, we're getting sidetracked already. So for me,
what about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, so the biggest thing has been Ramadan's coming up in this weekend actually. So as we're recording this is just at the end of February. So the 1st of March will be the first fast for the next 29-30 days. So I decided this year it always takes me a couple of days to adjust, right? So I was like, you know what I'm going to do is do mini fasts. So about twice a week, I will have dinner and not have any food until the next dinner, but I'll have water and coffee and stuff. So
you're going to say until breakfast. And I was like, wow, that's amazing.
yes, that mini
How
fast.
do you manage that?
Yeah, I don't know. It takes that resilience, But so that's one thing. I'm on long service leave at the moment, so trying to enjoy some downtime, but there's just so much extra things lying around that it's like every time I go back to work, I'm like, all these other things fall by the wayside, so I don't know how to get them
Sounds
done.
Like you need a holiday to get away from your long service leave.
No, it's like actually what it is outsourcing properly. Like you've been doing this for a while, so you've kind of gotten used to delegate everything. I'm not quite used to that, but I'm slowly getting there so that there's less and less built up when I do take time off.
That's
So
it, I do find. I mean, at the end of the day, like, yeah, when you're sort of going hard for a little while, there's the, I'll do that later, I'll do that later, I'll do that later.
that.
Some stuff is stuff that only you can do, and it does add up. It's like, oh, okay, I got to do that.
Well, I think in my head, I still just try and do the first thing instead of like going, oh, I should delegate first, or do I have to do it first? And that's slowly changing. So I was trying to figure out insurance for this property purchase from not long ago, and I was like, oh, this is a perfect task, right? And I like spent like a week on it, whereas normally I would have spent like a month on it, like just in between other bits, right? Like as in, not gonna spend a month doing the thing, but in the spare moments, that's what I'd be doing. So I was like, oh, that's quite useful because it just really freed up time to do some other stuff. And then on the biggest thing this week, I am now YouTube monetized on my other channel. Yay! Yay! I get $1
That's
a
it.
day.
Now you can quit your
Yes.
job.
Yes. Yes. Anyway, those are the updates. But let's get into tech fails that changed the world. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Yeah, so I suppose I picked some of the health tech sort of ones.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give 3 examples, and each is kind of in a little bit of a different category. So the first one is one called Outcome Health. And instead of doing the usual Theranos thing, this is also another health tech fraud conviction as of more recently.
Okay.
And then there's the whole dark privacy.
What were they trying to do?
I'll give the overview and I'll go into the first one. DeepMind, they're talking about their sort of, data privacy and everybody borrowing your data. And the final one is something that's kind of been hyped for a little while, is doing stuff and eventually being fizzled off, which is IBM Watson.
Do you want to do one, then I'll do another in between?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so my overview will be the Palm Pre. I mean, I was going to go back to like Apple days, but I was like, nah, Palm Pre is probably a more modern version of it. Google Glass, which spawned an entire new term called glass holes. And Segway, the scooter, like mobility company thing. Yeah, okay. And they're all for different reasons, but they did end up changing the world. So, yeah. So, you take it off.
All right. Well, the first one, Outcome Health. I think it's just kind of like it's something that happens for once in a while, every so often, but occasionally they get big enough that they kind of remind everybody about the whole startups are great. But unfortunately, sometimes people do lie as well. And Outcome Health was a startup that started back in 2017, and their whole thing was that they sold ad space on waiting room screens. So if you go to your doctor, you're sitting there in the waiting room, and there's a TV there usually, which has just got the local news or whatever. But one of the options the clinic has is to sign up with Outcome Health. They'll put some ads on, and they'll share some of the advertising money with the clinic. Now, seems like a fairly straightforward idea.
What an outcome.
Yeah, what an outcome.
It has nothing to do with outcomes in health.
It provides a great outcome for the advertiser. Think of the poor advertising company. Nobody think of the advertising company.
No, I clearly didn't. That's where I went wrong. Yeah.
But, with the startup, there's always deadlines and numbers to hit and growth rates that you have to hit. And just like some other famous ones, like Theranos, where they're like, we're just around the corner from hitting the goal in, arbitrary goal, etc., that we're going to hit. These guys started falsifying all of their user engagement metrics. And essentially it's like, we've got 1 clinic. No, we've got 10 clinics with all the patients watching it all the time. Yes, definitely. And they get that up, and then, they raised $500 million. That's not income. That's raised $500 million of investment.
Yeah, raising is the goal.
Everyone so the business model, the best business model for a startup is capital. Revenue, raise capital, that's the way. But, so... Oh, I see. The board has that.
Sorry, I was just scrolling through.
Why not? So these guys were found. They were convicted as of last year. Oh no, 2 years ago now. For fraud. And what tends to happen is there's a bit of a cycle where something bad happens, everyone's a bit wary, and then eventually money becomes cheap again, and these sort of things keep happening again, again, and again. People are like, wow, I don't want to miss out. This sounds great, whether it sounds feasible or not.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like when people go, "Oh man, modern day stuff is terrible." I would urge dear listeners to look up the was it the Denmark tulip craze,
Tulip
which
craze,
was
yeah.
yeah, like I think it
Tulip
was
mania.
Denmark. Yeah, tulip mania. It was the I think the world's first essentially asset bubble that was widely reported because of how ridiculous it was. Like I'm sure
Yeah.
they've happened before, but this was
I
yeah,
think that's when, yeah, trading futures was a thing
yeah,
because, yeah, you could,
tulips,
yeah. So if somebody has the
tulips,
bulbs not grown yet, you could buy the option to purchase the eventual
tulips.
tulips,
Okay,
but the
okay,
price
okay.
of that kept going up and buying those went up. So anyway, things haven't changed.
And if you look up the dates for when the Tulip Mania happened, you'll see. So I'll leave this as homework because it is hilarious that this is not a not modern phenomenon and it happens in all asset classes. This is not a, tech came along and ruined it. It's like, nah, humans be humans, you know.
Yep, promos are always.
My one is the Palm Pre. Do you remember like when we were in uni and high school
I
and
had the
stuff, the
Palm
Palm
5X or the 5 and the
I had the
5X, I
Palm
think.
3 and then the Palm
Uh,
Trio, the transformy one.
yeah.
So
I think
Palm
I did
for
eventually get the T3 as well. Anybody that,
yeah, you did. We both had the
recognizes that?
T3. Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Good times.
So if anyone this is like the OG I like these things. So on a couple
That
of
was my
notes.
laptop. I had a keyboard
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that was my
yeah. You had
laptop for
like the
work.
little foldy keyboard thing that used to carry. Yeah. So Palms, for those too young to remember, were like the original iPhone. Like there was a version that had a phone
Mm.
built in as well. So it was a black and white and then eventually color screen organizer. So it could do your to-dos, emails, had little apps, and it even had like a little IR blaster so you could have like a TV remote controller app on it.
Yeah.
And it had like, it was basically PDA, a personal
Mm.
digital assistant. It had a little stylus, what I love so much. And this was actually so the history of Palm is that one of the founders actually used to work for Apple, and they had like their own version of things like that, which failed, and that's why Steve Jobs famously hated styluses. So they went and made Palm. Palm was really good. It was like one of those big companies back in the day, and then they decided to actually go into smartphones after the iPhone came out, and they made the Palm Pre, which was like a modern reimagining. It had a keyboard, it had like a modern interface, so everyone kind of goes, "Oh my god!" Like iPhone changed everything. It's like, well, actually, the Palm had multi-touch before the iPhone. So the pinch to zoom stuff, not in exactly those fashion. It had like the swipe gestures. Like we're talking 10 years before the iPhone adopted swipe-based navigation, right? And like some of the features that you use in your iPhone, like on your iPhone or Android phones today, eventually they obviously have disappeared because no one remembers them anymore. But the guy who designed the interface is the lead guy who went, because when Android came out, it was kind of like some nerd in the university kind of slapped together different icons. Nothing matched sense. The lead designer of the Palm Pre was the guy who came into Android and modernized it all so that it had a consistent theme. And like actually, that's when Android also went from just button based navigation to swipe based navigation, and it was in the spirit of the original Palm Pre because when you swipe up on your iPhone and you see the cards like for multitasking, the Pre was the first phone to have that. It was the first interface to actually have the cards based interface, like what you see everywhere and kind of makes sense. Yeah, 15 years ago was the first generation of that, and it worked exactly the same. So both
So
Apple
only they
and
didn't have a
Android.
stylus.
No, that one actually didn't. That's why they failed. So they lost the stylus in the Palm Pre. Yeah. Anyway, so that was Palm Pre, an epic fail, but one that has genuinely, like, I will say, affects every person using a smartphone to this day. So, Palm Pre, live on.
Reminds me of actually I didn't put this in my list, but the Pebble Watch. I had that. That was great. That was
It's
like
back.
the
Pebble
yeah,
Watch
I
is
saw
back.
that. Yeah, I know. It was on my mind because I was like, whoa, hello. But yeah, the OG smartwatch that didn't
Yeah.
quite make it, but hey, it's for the next
Well, I
generation.
mean, it kind of did because it got acquired by Fitbit. So they had an exit, and then they made that into Fitbit OS and Google Watch OS, and now they've spun it out again and open sourced it. So they're actually releasing a new hardware product. So I still
Yeah.
have mine, and I think you still have yours.
Yep. All right. Well,
All right.
the next one I'll talk about is how everyone's taking your data. You already sort
No,
of knew this on Facebook because, who'd have thought you posting up your food pictures on Facebook was being used by Facebook?
no, they would never
But
do that.
never, never. But medical data is also pretty valuable. And of course, there's just straight up theft of medical data. But there's also a bit of a grey area now where companies want to partner with hospitals to get access to data so they can train their AI models because AI models feed on data basically. And the process of getting that data is quite variable. And as an example, actually, DeepMind, so from Google, they were working with the NHS in the UK. So Google, biggest, like the national health provider of the UK, and there was an agreement to set up a service-based analysis for kidney disease and be able to predict it early for patients that are in the hospital. That's a big cause of problems. And they had a pretty successful, it was working-ish. But it turned out they accessed a whole bunch more data than what they were actually originally permitted to use.
No, they
And
would
so
never
then
do that.
that creates an issue because it's like, all right, well, on the one hand, we've used the data now and it works. What do we do? On the second hand, you're like, well, shouldn't really be doing that and shouldn't really be kind of incentivized to do that in the future as well. And so it's kind of like, wartime medical experimenting and things like that. I don't really want to
Uh,
encourage that. But
I'm not sure if
in the
it's that
category of
extreme, but yeah.
it's not that extreme, but it's the thing of things done wrong giving you a result,
Well, I
which
mean,
is not really great either. And
it's
of course, not nearly as bad, but it just brings up that as an issue. And so this has sort of changed, and this happened a little while ago, and it changed things a lot in terms of the way that hospitals and healthcare organizations deal with the way that they are willing to or not willing to share their data. Because on the one hand, there is a genuine public good from using that data, and already for research studies, hospitals often have approved ways of want to do a research study, great. Here's the pathway you go through in the hospital to get access to the identified data and be able to benefit everybody else from it. But then equally, it's like nowadays more and more data is being trolled, and some of that data can then be used maybe not so, even though it seems to be de-identified, there are ways to re-identify information.
yeah. I mean, like
Have you
this.
heard of that?
I think you told me actually, like about some health executive who was like, no, the data is de-identified, and someone went and matched up his health record and then retargeted ads based on that or something just to get their attention to say, de-identified, sure.
Not quite. And yeah, exactly, because this is something that we set up at, we've got some de-identification services and stuff like that, and actually a really, really, really kind of problem because a lot of things can be identifiable that you might not realize. Just the fact that even if there's no name or date of birth or anything, there's a rare disease in a small country town. It's probably like, one dude in the town in a wheelchair. All right, well, that's Bob.
Well, it's like, you used to be like, oh, I'm a needle in a haystack, right? Now, if you, because everyone else is thinking, but now it's like the data resolution is so high that it's not a haystack, it's a pile of needles, and each one is the needle that like is fine. Like, does that analogy kind of make sense? It's like your resolution is so high. It's like, this person is someone sailing on a boat who happens to have a podcast called randInt, who happens to be in the Bahamas. I wonder who this person could be,
Must be right.
Like,
explanation done. And he likes warm weather. Must be him.
Yeah, like like it's just each entry has so many allocated data points that you can triangulate quite easily now, and that's the whole premise of big data / AI / machine learning, right? Like you just unfathomable amounts of data. Whereas if you gave the same amount to a human, no one could be asked processing it because it's just too much, right?
Yeah,
I think
that's interesting thing. Something like it's like cookies have been blocked, so you can't track people around the web. But it turns out your unique combination of browser settings is pretty much enough. So the fact that you
Yeah,
use Windows X, version whatever, with Chrome version whatever, with these settings turned on and off, and a few other different things, like, all right, that's Raffy.
the most hilarious thing was we went to Norfolk Island a few years ago, and we were just like at a cafe because like there's not really 3G, and it's such a small island that there's not really roaming, so we used to have to use Wi-Fi for everything. And at a certain point, I started to get boat ads because our IP addresses were too similar. I was like, what the hell? I don't even know what this is. And he's like, oh, I was looking this up yesterday. Like, it didn't get the exact device, but it got close enough based on just the IP.
I think you need things.
But listen, if you are listening to this and getting worried, switch to a browser called Brave. What it does is it does have a randomization protocol to actually make it harder. It's not impossible to break, but Brave has some interesting defaults. Like, you can do this with other settings and whatnot in any browser, in the advanced stuff. But if you want like a good out of the box, kind of has extra privacy features built in, Brave browser. Not sponsored, but if they want to sponsor, I absolutely have been like spruiking this left, right, and center for years now. So Brave, come on, sponsor the podcast. My one is Google Glass. So this is again like over a decade ago. Like, everyone's going Apple VR, like what's it called again? Apple Vision Pro. The future is here.
Yes.
Yeah, and the Meta glasses that like have the voice assistant. So Google made one with a camera and a display and like a swipe gesture thing, like, what's that, over 10 years ago now. But the Silicon Valley being Silicon Valley, people started like walking around with it and recording people, and like people got freaked out because it wasn't really like, the Meta glasses have a little light that turns on. I don't think the Google Glass had like a recording light. So people didn't know if they were being recorded or, and it was also, remember, 10 years ago, vloggers and YouTubers weren't a thing. So being photographed or like recorded in,
Like, what's the big deal?
you didn't have the people walking around with phones recording Karens doing Karen-y things either. So being recorded was a big thing. So people started calling these people glass holes and had such a big backlash that even though it was a really cool product, it actually had like a lot of the stuff that we're currently doing done. It had like the basic version of Google Assistant built in, so it could actually, it was way ahead of its time. Yeah, it basically just failed because it was too early. But that said,
and now thankfully we have this, much more subtle thing that's very socially acceptable. You just put your Apple Vision Pro on and just walk around the shops. It's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so
according to the Apple filtered view of the world they put on, everyone's just smiling, going, "Wow, that looks amazing."
Why
no one's pointing and laughing?
Like, people are walking around with just holding up their iPhones. This is not subtle. But yeah, Google Glass, I think, was just too early, actually. Like, I think the product itself was fine because for such an early, like, this is so far. Yeah. And like, even their launch was kind of like, how Apple has like they used to, like, the launches were kind of flashy and exciting. That launch, if you look up the Google Glass launch, was like Google going, yeah, we're going to amp it up. In the middle of the presentation, they literally switched to a live view of people paragliding off like a plane or a hot air balloon into the actual convention hall. And you saw the entire live stream from a Google Glass as they entered the stage. Like, it was nuts. Like, again, this is like 10 plus years ago. Like, we've just societally made it acceptable to have these things now, but it existed.
I think there'll be a few iterations and then it'll be normal, because it's like, the Casio watch was not exactly a commonly worn thing. But now every man and dog has an Apple Watch.
Yeah, this is true. All right, what's your last
I did also send you a little link there that we'll add to the show notes called amiunique.org. You can go to that website and it'll tell you whether you can be identified across the web.
No, you click the button. It says, can we make a version called I'm Definitely Unique, where all you do is press the button and it says, you are a special snowflake.
I would be very curious to see if you're using your Brave browser are unique. Just curious.
Well, actually, yeah, true. I'll just test that out. I mean, again, Brave isn't foolproof, but it does, like, as compared to other browsers, the defaults are closer to privacy positive
The interesting
rather
thing
than
about this one is that you can see what are the things that you're rare for, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Probably not that many people in this time zone with English Australia set as their content language.
Yeah, well, I'm currently using Edge, so it should be pretty identifiable. But anyway,
So the other one, anyway, while you're doing that, or you've done already,
yeah. What does it say? Edge.
I'll
Yes,
talk
you're
about the next
unique
one.
among.
Well, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you're unique. All right, there you go. You're identifiable.
no. Yeah. Anyway, what's your last one?
Yeah, so I guess sometimes there's stuff that's been talked about for a while, and eventually it sort of just doesn't work out. And the one I was going to talk about is IBM Watson. And I'm sure everyone remembers, like, IBM Watson, the first one to, win the chess game, etc.
No, it was Jeopardy,
Back in the
man.
day. Oh, Jeopardy, right. It did well
Yes.
back in the day. And so they were like, great, let's make this useful, become a health thing. And finally, in 2022, they sold the assets to a private equity firm and essentially offloaded it because they tried so many times, so many different variations of it to get some traction to do something of use. But yeah, wasn't able to. And it's interesting also because it's a function of the time as well, I suspect, because what that was is very different to the architecture of what the software today needs to run on, where today running the latest AI stuff needs just a really good Bitcoin mining farm, whereas back in the day it was a entirely different way of doing things.
Well, I mean, I gotta say, right? Like, I tried this. You can't actually run Llama LLM on the latest Android phones using a wrapper. A code layer, and it's not in real time, but on my laptop, I actually am using it as my coding assistant just offline if I'm flying because it runs and it's
So if your code doesn't work, well, no why.
code always works. Okay? Llama knows everything. So that's the AI model from Meta or Facebook. Yeah, and most devices can actually run a single user, not too many prompts, like instance quite well. Just random fact that I was thinking, I was like, I always wondered, like, why was the IBM thing called Watson? Was it like a Sherlock Holmes thing? And it turns out the founder of IBM was like something Watson. So that's why it's called Watson. It's not a Sherlock Holmes reference. But I've always wondered that when Watson came out. There you are. Random
Who knows?
tidbit.
Maybe this will be the Google Glass of it, and later on there'll be another, I don't know, Bob, IBM Bob.
No, it'll be like House MD Health, by IBM. This one won't kill you, we promise.
Definitely not patented.
Yeah, this was like I just remember IBM Watson like being touted as the greatest thing ever, and then it made it was like a cooking recipe that didn't make any sense. It was like inedible things mixed in with it, and then they tried with like, hey, let's try it on healthcare, and then it was like, oh, the only way to it was essentially like the COVID plus bleach thing. It's like this protocol will definitely cure the cancer. It's like yes, it will also kill the host. So that's
You're
when
just
it
going
kind
to
of
be
went.
more specific with your questions.
My last one is the mobility startup Segway. So do you remember? Like it was like
Yeah.
Mall Cop. There were
The last time I saw them was on a tour.
yeah, Segway tours are still a thing. I remember the first time we went to Chicago. We saw remember like there was those cops on the Segway. Yeah. They're like, whoa, okay. So
This is not just in the movies, okay?
yeah. So for those who haven't seen a Segway, it's basically like a hoverboard, like those hoverboards that keep on exploding, but with a stick. So it's like two wheels. You stand on it, and you can lean forward or backwards to actually roll around.
And
So
if you haven't seen a Segway, where have you been living?
they might be young, you know.
Fine.
Well, I mean, Segways currently are the brand. I think it eventually got sold off and they make scooters, like, just the electric scooters and other things now. But at the time, there were these futuristic things, but I think it happened to coincide with that sort of what are we becoming as a society? Because this is when like Super Size Me and everything else came out, like, the anti-McDonald's movie. And people kind of like the stereotype was you're too big to walk around. So then you go on Segway to even walk even less. And it just has all those negative connotations. But it did mean that people start to go, we can, like, I mean, if you think about what it's actually doing, it's essentially a very dumb robot. Like, it self-balances and lets you move around.
Sure.
So it's a robotic move.
What are we doing now? Very unfortunate. Until next time, try not to have text fails of your own. Bye.